You know that moment when you catch your reflection in a shop window and don't recognize the tired woman looking back at you? I've had that moment more times than I'd like to admit. Something about the wrong haircut doesn't just age your face, it ages the whole impression you give off before you even say a word. Today I'm walking you through 5 haircuts that do the opposite. These aren't trendy gimmicks. They're the exact cuts that stylists reach for when a woman past 60 wants to look rich, elegant, and years lighter without touching a needle. I researched the best haircuts and styling fixes for women over 50, so you get results that actually hold up in real light, not just in a salon mirror. If you haven't hit subscribe yet, do it now because I cover a new fix like this every single week. Part 1. The silver lob that reads as luxury, not lazy. Here's something most women over 60 don't know about long hair. Past a certain point, length doesn't read as youthful anymore, it reads as heavy, and heavy pulls your whole face down with it. Stylists have a name for what happens when hair hangs past the collarbone on a woman with more mature skin. They call it drag, because that's exactly what it does to your jawline, visually tugging everything south. I used to wear my hair long because I thought cutting it meant giving something up. Then I saw a photo from a wedding and realized my hair wasn't making me look younger, it was making me look tired. The fix is a collarbone grazing lob, cut with soft, rounded layers through the ends rather than one blunt line. This length matters more than people think. It sits exactly at the point where it lifts the face instead of pulling it, and the layering underneath adds movement so the cut never looks stiff or helmet-like. When you're in the chair, don't just say a bob. Say this instead. I want a rounded lob that hits right at my collarbone, with soft layers underneath for movement, not a blunt line. That phrase alone tells your stylist you know exactly what you want, and it prevents the single most common lob mistake, which is cutting it too blunt and too heavy at the bottom. Here's the part that surprises people. The rounded layering doesn't just add movement, it changes how light hits your face. Blunt, heavy ends absorb light and cast a shadow along the jaw. Soft, round layers catch and bounce that same light, which is why women who make this switch often say people start commenting on their skin, not just their hair. Rosalind, one of the women who wrote in after trying this, told me her hairdresser did the cut, and within the same appointment, before Rosalind even left the chair, 2 other clients asked where she'd gotten it done. That's the kind of reaction a genuinely well-placed lob gets, because it doesn't look like a haircut, it looks like a decision someone confident made about themselves. What changes is subtle but real. Your jawline photographs sharper. Your neck looks longer instead of swallowed by hair. And because the cut sits at collarbone length, it works with silver, white, or color-treated hair equally well. There's no length penalty for going gray. The lob doesn't fight your natural texture either. So whether your hair is fine or has some body to it, the rounded layering adapts. The before and after here isn't subtle. Before. Hair past the collarbone, one blunt length, heavy at the ends, pulling the whole face downward. After. A rounded lob at the collarbone, soft layers underneath, lifted and light. Same woman, same face, completely different first impression. There's one more thing worth knowing before you book this. The lob only works this well if your stylist cuts the layers dry, not wet. Wet cut layers tend to spring up shorter once your hair dries, especially with textured or wavy hair, and that can throw off the collarbone placement entirely. Ask specifically for a dry cut and finish, or at minimum a wet cut with a dry check afterward to confirm the line sits where you want it. It's a small technical detail, but it's the difference between a lob that looks intentional and one that looks accidental. I also want to mention what this cut does for your morning routine because that matters just as much as how it photographs. A blunt, heavy, past the collarbone length needs real styling time to look finished. It doesn't fall into place on its own. The rounded lob does most of the work for you. Once it's cut correctly, it has natural movement built in, so even air-dried, it looks styled rather than undone. That's not a small thing when your mornings are already full. And there's a quieter shift here too, one that's harder to put into words but easy to feel. Long hair on a woman past 60 can read as an attempt to hold on to something, whether that's fair or not. A rounded lob reads as the opposite. It reads as a woman who's not trying to look like anyone else's version of young. She's simply chosen the cut that makes her look the most like herself at her best. But length isn't the only thing quietly working against you. There's a second, much sneakier mistake hiding in how most women part their hair, and it might be doing more damage than the length ever did. Part 2. The curtain fringe that softens a decade. Nobody tells you this about your forehead, but as skin loses elasticity, horizontal lines deepen and the whole upper face starts to look like it's carrying more weight than the rest of you. A full fringe used to be the answer, but a full blunt fringe on a woman over 60 can look costume-like, too severe, too much like a wig line. The real fix stylists are quietly recommending instead is the curtain fringe, parted in the center and swept back at the temples, with the fringe pieces swept past the temples rather than cut straight across. I resisted this for years because I associated fringes with my 20s, all that maintenance, all that growing out awkwardness. What changed my mind was realizing the curtain fringe isn't really a fringe in the old sense at all. It's face framing. It schemes the forehead instead of covering it, which means it softens those horizontal lines without hiding your whole face behind hair. When you sit down for this, tell your stylist, I want a curtain fringe center parted, with the pieces long enough to sweep back behind my ears if I want, not a blunt cut across my forehead. That phrasing prevents the fringe from being cut too short or too structured, which is the single fastest way to age this particular style. What surprises most women is how much this one detail changes the eyes. When fringe pieces sweep past the temples instead of sitting flat across the brow, they create a soft diagonal line that draws the eye up and out, toward the cheekbone, instead of down toward the forehead lines. It's the same principle a good eyebrow shape works on, except it's happening in hair instead of brow pencil. Colette, a longtime viewer, told me she'd avoided fringes for a decade because her last one in her 30s looked try hard. When she finally tried the swept curtain version, she said her daughter's first comment wasn't about the fringe at all, it was, "You look so rested," which is exactly the kind of compliment this cut is built to earn. The mechanism matters here because it explains why so many fringes fail on mature hair. A blunt, straight across fringe sits static, it doesn't move with you, and static hair near an aging forehead tends to emphasize stillness in a face that already reads as tired. The swept curtain fringe moves every time you turn your head, which keeps the whole upper face looking animated and alive rather than fixed in place. It's a small mechanical difference with an outsized visual effect. There's also a versatility advantage nobody mentions. Because the curtain fringe is longer and can be swept fully back, you're not locked into wearing it forward every single day. On days you want more coverage over the forehead, you sweep it down. On days you want your whole face open, you push it back and it blends into the rest of your layers. That flexibility is part of why this cut has such staying power once women commit to it. It never feels like a costume you have to maintain, it feels like an option you have. Before, a flat, tired forehead with deepening horizontal lines fully exposed, nothing softening the transition from hairline to brow. After soft, swept curtain pieces framing the temples, drawing the eye up and out, the whole upper face looking lighter and more awake. The visual difference in these two states is dramatic even though the technical change is just a few strategically cut inches of hair. One thing to flag before you commit. The curtain fringe needs a slight collaboration with your natural part. If you've had a deep side part for years, your stylist should cut the fringe pieces asymmetrically to match, not force a perfectly even center part that fights your hair's natural fall. Mention your usual part when you're in the chair. It sounds like a minor detail, but a fringe cut against your natural growth pattern will flip up or separate awkwardly within a week, and you'll end up fighting it with product every single morning instead of letting it do the work for you. Growing it out later is easier than people expect, too, which takes away a lot of the hesitation. Because the curtain fringe is longer from the start, there's no awkward stage where it's too short to tuck back and too long to sit forward. It simply gets integrated into your layers over a few months if you ever want to change direction. That low commitment quality is part of what makes stylists recommend it so often for women who are nervous about trying a fringe again after a bad experience decades ago. Now here's where it gets interesting, because the very next mistake isn't about cut length or fringe placement at all. It's about something happening at the root that's aging you every single time you skip it. Part 3. The root lift shag that fixes thinning before it shows. If your hair has started to feel thinner at the crown, here's the truth nobody in your regular salon chair says out loud. It's not always about how much hair you have. It's about how flat that hair is lying against your scalp. Fine or thinning hair that's cut in one uniform length collapses at the root, and that collapse is what reads as thin, even on women who haven't actually lost that much density. The fix isn't a wig, it isn't extensions, it's a specific cutting technique called a root lift shag, where short layers are cut at the crown to create lift visible at the crown before the rest of the length falls naturally past it. I remember the exact morning I noticed my part looking wider than it used to. I stood under the bathroom light convinced I was losing hair by the handful, when really my hair was fine, it was just lying flat because of how it had been cut for years. A stylist finally explained that layering the crown short creates a kind of built-in scaffolding. The shorter pieces stand up slightly and give the longer pieces underneath something to rest on, instead of collapsing flat against the scalp. When you ask for this, use these words. I want short layers cut specifically at the crown for root lift, blended into longer layers through the rest of my hair. That phrase tells your stylist exactly where the volume needs to be built, rather than leaving it to guesswork. Here's the part that genuinely surprised me when I researched this further. The shag layering doesn't just create volume, it changes how light scatters across your scalp. Flat hair reflects light in one uniform sheet, which makes any visible scalp underneath look more exposed. Lifted, textured layers scatter that same light in dozens of directions, which visually blurs the line between hair and scalp. It's an optical effect more than an actual density change, but the result looks identical to having fuller hair, because visually, that's exactly what's happening. Diane, a viewer who wrote in after struggling with this for years, told me she'd spent a small fortune on volumizing products before trying the cut itself. Within one appointment, she said the difference was more noticeable than 2 years of product changes combined. That's the thing about a structural fix versus a product fix. Product can only do so much when the underlying cut is working against you. Once the layering itself is doing the lifting, you need far less product to maintain the look day to day. There's a texture component here too that matters for long-term maintenance. Root lift shags are typically cut with a razor or point cutting technique rather than blunt shears, which creates soft, irregular ends instead of one heavy uniform line. That irregular texture is part of what keeps the volume looking natural rather than teased or artificial. It also means the cut grows out more gracefully, since there's no single blunt line to visibly outgrow. Before, hair lying flat against the scalp, one uniform length, the crown visibly compressed and the part looking wider than it should. After, short layers lifted at the crown, longer layers falling naturally beneath them, the whole silhouette rounder and fuller without a single extra strand added. This is a cut-based fix, not a product-based one, and that distinction is exactly why it lasts. A word of caution before you book this one. Not every stylist cuts a root lift shag the same way, and if the crown layers are cut too short, you can end up with pieces that stick straight up instead of gently lifting. Ask to see the shortest layer measured against your fingers before the cut starts. Most experienced stylists aim for roughly 2 to 3 inches at the crown on shoulder-length hair, adjusted for your particular texture and density. If your stylist seems unfamiliar with the term root lift shag, it's worth showing a reference photo so you're both working from the same picture. Maintenance-wise, this cut rewards you the longer you have it. Because the layering builds structure into the hair itself, blow-drying becomes faster, not slower, since you're working with the cut instead of against it. Many women find they can skip a full round brush blowout entirely and still get lift, just by flipping their head forward for 30 seconds while towel drying. That's the kind of quiet, everyday payoff that a good structural cut gives you, long after the appointment itself is over. Once your crown has that natural lift working for you, there's still one more piece of the puzzle left, and it's the one most women save for last because it feels the most permanent. But it might be the fastest way to look 10 years younger of everything on this list. Part 4. The soft pixie that reveals instead of hides. Here's a fact that surprises almost every woman I talk to about this. A well-cut pixie doesn't age you. It can genuinely be the youngest reading haircut on this entire list, because it does something no longer style can do quite as well. It fully exposes your bone structure. And here's the part that trips people up. Bone structure gets more defined with age, not less. Cheekbones become more pronounced, jawlines become more sculpted. A pixie doesn't hide that, it shows it off, which is exactly why the right pixie can look more expensive and more current than hair twice its length. The mistake most women make with a pixie past 60 isn't cutting it too short. It's cutting it too uniform, clipped close and even all over like a men's cut from decades ago. That's the version that ages you. The version that doesn't is a soft, textured pixie with longer pieces left through the top and a gentle taper at the sides, so there's movement at the crown even though the overall length is short. Say this exact phrase in the chair. I want a soft textured pixie with more length left on top for movement, tapered at the sides, not clipped close all over. That single distinction changes the entire character of the cut. What makes the soft pixie work so well on mature faces comes down to proportion. Short hair with texture on top actually elongates the face slightly, because the eye travels upward toward the volume at the crown instead of stopping at the jaw. That's the opposite of what most women fear happens with short hair. They worry it will widen or shorten the face, when the well-cut version does the reverse. It's a case where the fear about the cut and the reality of the cut are almost completely inverted. I heard from a woman named Eleanor who'd wanted a pixie for years, but kept talking herself out of it, convinced it would read as giving up on her appearance. When she finally committed, her exact words to me afterward were that strangers started making eye contact with her more, holding it longer, the kind of attention she said she hadn't felt in years. That's not vanity talking, that's a real documented effect. Short hair with strong texture draws attention to the face itself rather than letting hair act as a curtain. And when your face is doing well, that's a genuine advantage, not a risk. There's a color consideration worth mentioning here too. Pixies photograph differently than longer cuts because there's so much less hair to soften harsh color transitions. If you're working with gray regrowth against dyed ends, a pixie will show that line faster than a longer cut would. Many women who go short also simplify their color at the same time, either embracing full silver or going with a single all-over shade, specifically because it plays better with this length. It's worth discussing with your colorist in the same conversation as the cut itself, rather than treating them as two separate appointments. Before, longer hair with no defined shape at the crown, bone structure softened and obscured by length and weight. After, a soft, textured pixie with volume left on top, cheekbones and jawline fully visible and sharply defined. The transformation here tends to be the most dramatic on this entire list, because it removes the most material, but it's also, counterintuitively, the one that most often gets women mistaken for a decade younger in photos. If you're nervous about committing, there's a middle step worth knowing about. Ask your stylist to cut a slightly longer grown-out pixie first, sometimes called a French crop or a long pixie, which keeps a bit more length through the crown and sides. It gives you nearly the same face-revealing effect while leaving you more to work with if you decide the full short version isn't for you. Most women who take this middle step end up going shorter on their next visit anyway, once they've seen how the shape actually suits them, but it removes the all-or-nothing pressure of the first cut. Styling a soft pixie is far simpler than people expect, and that simplicity is part of the appeal. A small amount of texturizing paste worked through damp hair, finger-styled rather than brushed, is usually all it takes. There's no round brush, no hot tools required most days, which means what used to be a 20-minute styling routine can become a 5-minute one. For a lot of women, that time saved becomes just as meaningful as how the cut actually looks. There's one haircut left on this list, and it might be the most quietly powerful of all, because unlike the others, it's not really about cutting anything away. It's about what you do with the length you already have. Part 5. The long layered cut that makes gray look expensive. This last one surprises people because it isn't a dramatic transformation at all. It's a refinement, and refinements are often what separate hair that looks expensive from hair that just looks long. If you've been growing your hair out and resisting a cut because you don't want to lose length, here's what most women miss. Uncut, uniform length isn't actually flattering past a certain point, no matter how healthy it is, because it moves as one solid mass instead of catching light and movement individually. The fix is long layers, cut throughout the length rather than just at the ends, so the hair moves in sections instead of as a single sheet. I held on to my own long hair for years with almost no layering at all, convinced that any cutting meant losing the length I'd worked to grow. What I didn't understand was that layering doesn't shorten your overall length in any meaningful way. It just changes how that length behaves. When you're in the chair, say this precisely. I want long layers cut throughout, not just at the ends, so the length still falls past my shoulders but moves in sections. That phrasing keeps your length intact while giving your stylist permission to actually shape what's there instead of only trimming the bottom. Here's why this particular fix matters so much for gray and silver hair specifically. Uniform, unlayered length reflects light as one flat plane, which can make silver hair look slightly dull or metallic rather than luminous. Layers break that plane into dozens of smaller reflective surfaces, and that's what creates the soft, almost lit from within shine that expensive salon color and cut jobs are known for. It's not a product doing that work, it's the cut itself, catching and scattering light the way a well-cut gemstone does rather than a flat piece of glass. A viewer named Marguerite told me she'd assumed her hair simply didn't shine like it used to as she'd gone gray, and had started buying increasingly expensive glossing treatments to compensate. When she finally added long layers instead, she said the shine came back within one wash, no new product involved. That's the moment it clicked for her, and honestly, it's the moment it clicks for most women who try this, because we're conditioned to reach for a product first when the real answer is often sitting in how the hair is actually cut. There's a face shaping benefit here too, quieter than the pixies but real. Long layers, especially face framing ones cut slightly shorter around the front, create a soft diagonal line along the jaw similar to what we talked about with the curtain fringe, drawing the eye upward and outward rather than letting the full weight of long hair pull straight down. Combined with the shine effect, this is often the cut that reads as the most effortlessly put together. The one that looks like you didn't try very hard, even though the layering underneath is doing real, deliberate work. Before, one uniform length, moving as a single heavy mass, reflecting light flatly and looking duller than the hair's actual color would suggest. After, long layers cut throughout, catching light individually, moving with softness around the face and shine visible even in ordinary indoor lighting. Same length, same color, an entirely different final impression. A quick note on frequency, because this cut is often misunderstood as low maintenance simply because the length stays long. Layers need a trim roughly every 8 to 10 weeks to keep the internal shaping crisp, even if you're not cutting off any visible overall length. Skipping these trims lets the layers grow out unevenly, and the shine effect gradually fades back toward that flatter, heavier look you started with. Think of it less as growing my hair out, and more as maintaining a shape while the length stays long, which is a subtly different mindset that keeps the cut working for you long term. One more detail worth asking about specifically if your hair has any wave or curl pattern. Long layers behave differently on wavy hair than on poker straight hair, and a stylist who doesn't account for your natural texture can end up cutting layers that look right blow-dried straight, but spring into an uneven, choppy shape once your hair air dries into its natural pattern. Mention your natural texture up front and if possible, come in with your hair in its natural state, so your stylist is cutting what you'll actually be wearing most days, not just what it looks like freshly styled in the salon. That's all 5, and each one solves a completely different problem, but they share the same underlying truth. It was never really about length at all. So here's what you actually walked away with today. It was never about cutting your hair shorter or forcing yourself into a style that doesn't feel like you. It was about matching the cut to what your face and hair are already doing at this stage of your life, whether that's lift at the crown, softness at the temples, or simple movement through length you already love. Every one of these 5 fixes works because it's built around your actual bone structure and texture, not against it. And that's the difference between a haircut that ages you and one that makes you look like the most refined version of yourself. Tell me in the comments, which of these 5 spoke to you the most, the lob, the curtain fringe, the root lift shag, the pixie, or the long layers? Next week I'm covering the exact colorist language that keeps gray hair looking rich instead of flat, so you'll want to be here for that one. Like this video, subscribe to Timeless Wisdom Path, and I'll see you in the next one.